Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Jeffrey Stevens, who's here to share with us his new book, The Handler, a Nick Reagan Thriller. So are you looking for a spy thriller you just can't put down? Well, this book is just for you. So Jeffrey Stevens is a highly successful attorney in private practice in Connecticut. In addition to The Handler and Enemies Among Us, he is also the author of the Jordan Sandor thrillers, Targets of Deception, Targets of Opportunity, Targets of Revenge, and Rogue Mission, as well as the Anthony Walker Murder Mystery Crimes and Passion, and the Pencraft First Place Award-winning novel, Fool's Errand. So welcome to the show, Jeffrey Stevens.
Thanks so much for having me.
I am so delighted that we get to talk about this first book. My goodness, you have to tell me what inspired you to write this. It is a page turner.
Thank you. My espionage books, and The Handler is the first one in a new series, as you say, really are based on a relationship that I had with somebody years ago who, unbeknownst to me, was actually working with the CIA. He was a former Green Beret. He then, came out of the service. He was in the corporate world. And I found out quite by accident that he was working for the government. And so we got to talk about it a lot. He certainly didn't share state secrets with me or anything, didn't send me any of these documents that Trump and Biden are in trouble for. But he did tell me about how things worked, and I became more and more interested. And so I began to write these thrillers. And when I wrote The Handler, I really felt that I wanted to do one of these globe-hopping sort of exciting adventures, but with real topical issues, like the threat of terrorism that we seem to have taken for granted for a while as being under control when it really is not, and how the CIA works and how the agents who protect us really work in the shadows. They're not, wearing gowns and tuxedos and swilling champagne and martinis. They really are out there just like our military is. And so I wanted this to be a little bit gritty and interesting and take people sort of around the world. And that was what got me to start writing it.
Well, it's such a captivating read. Once I picked it up, I could not put it down. And I love how you bring in this aspect. I mean, you're right. I mean, a lot of people nowadays, we look at like how our national security is and we think, oh, everything's fine. But it's fine because of the men and women who are protecting us.
Oh, that's so brilliantly said. It's so true. And we don't realize, and we do take it for granted. And whether it's the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, the various agencies of government that work together, that work with other governments, our allies such as England and France and what have you, and the information we get and how they prevent so many incidents that might otherwise occur. And that's what I wanted to bring to the forefront, while at the same time writing a page turner. And I appreciate you saying that it is that, because in the end, it's an entertainment. I mean, it's supposed to be exciting, and I think it is. And I think, people start reading it and then they get in touch with me and said, oh my God, I couldn't sleep because I kept going to the next chapter and the next chapter. And that's the point of this type of fiction. And it's fun, but it's also, there's a lot of reality to it as well.
So when you talk about reality to it, what do you mean by that?
Well, I think that people have to understand, or should understand, that there are threats out there. That we have enemies in the world. That Iran and China and the surrogates who work on behalf of Iran, who get funded by them. These people mean us harm. They really do, and there are bad things at play at all times. I mean, now we have Putin once again, as somebody laughingly said, although it's not funny, every few months he rolls out the threat of using nuclear weapons if we get too involved in Ukraine and if France, Macron in France said that he was thinking about perhaps sending French troops to assist the Ukrainians. And immediately our friend Putin rolled out the threat of, oh, we have nuclear weapons and you better be careful what you do. I mean, this is a dangerous world in which we live. I mean, we want to love each other. We want to love people. We want to do good deeds. And I mean that sincerely. We want to honor each other and God and all of that. And yet there are evildoers out there. And we need people who stand in front of us to protect us. And that's our military, and that's the intelligence community. And it really does exist. And so that's why I think that people are so fascinated with these books. I mean, not just mine, but whether it's Greg Hurwitz or Daniel Silva or Vince Flynn, who's now deceased, but his series goes on and so forth. These things are real life issues, and people have to be mindful of them because there are threats out there to us.
So, why don't you share with our listeners what the handler means? Because I think for some people, they may not know that.
Yeah, it was actually the idea for the title came from a gentleman by the name of Larry Garringer. I work with him a lot in setting up my plots before I write the book, and I bounce things off him. And if he makes a face, then I know the idea is a bad one. But he was the one who really said, what's interesting? The people who handle these young, disenfranchised youths of various ethnic backgrounds who are on the dark web, who are writing to each other about their dissatisfaction with their lives and how they want to take it out in the United States and so on. So the handler is the guy or a lady who goes out there and enlists these people and tells them, well, I know what you can do to express your dissatisfaction. And hence we wind up with suicide bombers. We wind up with terrorist plots. We wind up with murderers. We wind up with people who are doing really bad things. While in the meantime, the handler sits back and pulls the puppet strings, never putting him or herself in the line of danger. And so that was the main character I wanted to create. And if I could just add that I think really good thriller fiction has to have a good villain. They can't be two-dimensional. People nowadays are so sophisticated, you can't fool them. You can't give them Goldfinger anymore. I mean, as much as I love James Bond, you can't have a single or two dimension a villain. That's not the way the world works. And so, in creating the handler, who I won't spoil it, but by telling people how it plays out and who he is, but by creating the handler, I wanted somebody who there was some interest there, that there was almost some empathy, that you could see some of his point of view, even if you don't agree with his actions, because there are different points of view. I mean, there are people out there who are against the United States. That doesn't mean they're insane. It means that they see the world through a different prism. And so it was very important for me in creating this character that he be interesting, because if you don't have an interesting villain, then the hero, it doesn't matter how good the hero is, the book's not going to be that interesting.
Well, I think it's very interesting as well for people to realize that our men and women that protect us, they just look like ordinary folk. Like you were saying, they're not all in tuxedos and wearing evening gowns.
Oh no, it's so true. In fact, when I first met this gentleman years back, he was so nondescript that he was almost forgettable looking. I hate to say it that way. It wasn't like he wasn't nice looking or he was ugly or something. He was just one of those people that you could pass on the street, like you're saying, and not think anything about it. And when I discussed that with him, he said, yeah, that's what we want. You don't want somebody who's going to be so memorable. I mean, one of the things, and I say this lovingly because I love the James Bond series. I love the books. I read them all. I love the movies. I've seen them all more than once. But the truth is, how is this guy a spy anymore? I mean, he's fabulous looking. He's been involved in all these adventures. I mean, anyone on the street could pick him out. And now you're going to convince me that he's going to fool people that he's a spy. That's not the real world. The real world about spies is that they're the people that you don't notice, and yet they're the ones out there protecting us. It's really quite an interesting paradox about this, because you can't be a famous spy, can you? If you're famous, you're not a spy anymore.
Yeah, that defeats the purpose because they know who you are.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, you see these great characters, these great actors who played them, everyone from Sean Connery, who I think was the best James Bond, but I mean, right up through Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig. And you see these guys, you're not likely to forget them. And the women that they hang out with obviously are always gorgeous. And so, that's not how this works. And so in writing The Handler, not that it was not that readers don't have fun with this, and not that there aren't attractive people involved, but you also have to realize, if you're going to be effective at this job, you have to work, as I said earlier, from the shadows. You have to work below the radar so that you're not noticed, so that you're not seen, and then you can accomplish the things you need to accomplish to keep us safe.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Jeffrey Stevens in regards to his new book, The Handler. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Hey, pay attention, everybody. Amy Vaughn and myself, Dutch Mendenhall, are hosting an event. Have you ever felt like the wealthiest in America play by a different rule book? Even if you earn well, make money, invest wisely, educate yourself, there is an invisible barrier. It separates you from the financial security enjoyed by America's elite. The economic landscape changes every day. The wealthy elite know how to stay ahead of it because we play by a different rule book. At Invest Well Summit, we'll share all the plays, and we're making it to win. Spots are going to sell out fast at InvestWell Summit, so get your butt to investwellsummit.com and secure your seat now.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Marianne. We're here today with special guest Jeffrey Stevens, who's here sharing with us his new book, The Handler, a Nick Reagan Thriller. So what was the research like for this book? Because, there's so much to it. It really, I would think it would have taken a long time to do all the research you did.
Yes, thank you for saying that. I did a lot of research on this book. I'm a stickler because, as I said already, readers nowadays are so sophisticated, you can't fool them anymore. And so, there was a time when I was a kid, I used to watch these Westerns, and when the fight came towards the end, the hero pulled out the 6-shooter and got behind a rock and started shooting at the bad guys in the black hats, and he fires off about 40 rounds without ever reloading his gun. And I bought every second of it because I was a kid and it was the era. But now people are so knowledgeable and they say, no, you can't get away with that. There's got to be reality. At some point, you run out of bullets, for example. And in writing this book, I really did research because I wanted to be sure that every locale that I describe in the book, with a couple of very, very extreme exceptions, I've been to, I've gone there, I've made sure I've seen it. If I take you into a restaurant in Paris, like in The Handler, or a restaurant in New York, or someplace else in the world that this book travels through, I've been to those locations. I've seen them. I know what I'm talking about because I want the reader to respect the authenticity of what I've created. So yeah, it took a lot of research, and it's fun research because once you have the idea, once you have most of the plot in your head, then you start to say, well, okay, this could be fun going to these different places. And people like that, I think. I know when I'm watching a movie or reading something, I like to be taken to places I might not ordinarily be. And so that's part of the fun of it for me.
Did you get any critique from any of your friends that are in the spy business?
I would say that's a rough one. Let's just say that I vetted, a lot. I vet a lot of what I write through people who are knowledgeable. Let's leave it at that. And so, they don't, as long as they're not wagging their finger at me and telling me that this is all nonsense, then I feel pretty good. And and so yes, and I get a lot of feedback. as I'm rewriting, because as people out there who write know, writing is really rewriting. I mean, the first draft of any novel is a lot of fun to get on the page, but then the hard work begins, and you have to start taking things out that don't work, even though you might love the scene, it just doesn't fit, and you have to worry about pacing, and you have to worry about, as I say, being real about the things that you're talking about. And so all of that comes into play. And so, yes, I get a lot of feedback, and I have sort of a team that, they'll tell me, oh, this is no good, or that doesn't work, or this does work, and I really enjoyed that. And that's very, very helpful to a writer, I must say. And anybody out there who writes knows that you absolutely rely on that sort of committee of critics around you. That's important.
Well, last time we were speaking, we talked about the second book of this series, Enemies Among Us.
Right.
How does that flow from the first book to the second?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Without giving too much away in terms of the plot, it really did flow directly. And what I wanted to do in Enemies Among Us, which is really doing great out there now. Thank you for mentioning it. It's there's a big promotion going on at Amazon, in fact, where we've dropped the price of the Kindle, and so people are buying it up, and it's great because I love people to have an opportunity to read it. And the thing is about that one, I really wanted to look at what was going on within our own government, within our own business world, with the very, very wealthy who actually control the country, and be sure that I was addressing the problems that exist there. And that's really the kind of book where it's a lot more difficult to tell the good guys from the bad guys, because there are people, and we're seeing it every day. And I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. I don't care if you're an independent or a conservative or a liberal. It doesn't matter. We all have to see that there are problems in this country, and we wonder, who can we trust anymore? Who can we believe? Who is telling us the truth? And so that's what I really wanted to deal with in Enemies Among Us. And I think it's gotten a really good response, because now, with the things going on in the world as well as within our country, people have reacted positively to the message.
There's so much out there. Well, I don't want to get too into these books because I don't want to give anything away. They are just, I just love the first two books. I think they're amazing. Where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
Well, thank you. My website is jeffreystevens.com, and Stevens is with a PH. As you said, The Handler was the first book in the series, and it's available. You can get it from your bookstore. You could go on Amazon, whatever works for you. You can buy the hardcover. You could get the Kindle. The second book in the series, Enemies Among Us, we're having this very special promotion for the next couple of weeks, that it's $1.99 on Kindle, which is really great. And as I say, people are responding in wonderful, wonderful ways, and buying up a lot of the copies, and we're moving to the top of the bestseller list from it. And I love it, because then people read it and then they can get back to me. And if you want to contact me, go through the website, jeffreystevens.com. My contact information is there. I love to hear from people who have read my stuff. If you don't like it, great. Let me know. Let me know what bothered you about it. And if you like it, even better.
Well, Jeff, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
And thank you again for having me. And a lot of fun. Thanks so much, Marianne. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Jeffrey. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, The Handler, a Nick Reagan thriller. The Handler is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and everywhere books are sold. Remember, support our indie bookstores. To learn more about the Nick Reagan Thriller series, make sure to visit Jeffrey's website at jeffreystevens.com. That's Jeffrey, STEPHENS.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.